There, welcome to today's webinar titled How to Create a Winning Personal Brand to Land Your Next Job. Welcome back if you've been here before, and if this is your first FlexJobs webinar, we are excited to have you here. As we get started, every time we do a webinar, we just sort of take it slow for a little while to make sure everybody gets into Big Marker and gets settled. While we do that, we always like to see where people are joining from. So feel free to get used to using the chat section and saying hello and where you're joining from. That would be great. And while you are doing that, I will cover the other items of interest for our presentation. So first and foremost, don't worry about taking notes during the webinar because we are recording it. We will also share a link to the recording and the resources that are shared within the presentation. So you should receive that within a few days of the event, and it will go to the email address that you registered with today. Also note, in terms of the recording, the presentation portion has been pre-recorded, but the Q&A that we do at the end is live with a career expert. So we will be here to answer your questions live, and there will be time to do that. So if you have a question and when you have questions, please go ahead and put those in the Q&A section of Big Marker rather than the chat section. This helps us prioritize the questions that we answer. All of the questions are in one place. And since we often can't answer every single question that comes in, we are able to get through several, and we do like to prioritize which questions many people would like to have answered. So please also exercise your right to give a thumbs up to any of the questions that you see in the Q&A section of Big Marker. So that's all the housekeeping information that we like to cover. Why don't we go ahead and dive into our topics for the day? So what we're going to cover in terms of your personal brand is we'll first talk about what it is, why you need one, and how you can create your own. We also want to talk briefly about some mistakes that are out there that can happen pretty easily, and we'll encourage you to definitely avoid those and let you know what to keep an eye out for. And as I mentioned, also a Q&A. So let's talk about what a personal brand really is. It is a way for you to establish and market yourself as an expert in your field or in the industry or in the area which you are trying to move into if you are going through a career change. A personal brand really allows people to see your core values, and it allows employers to know that you are goal-oriented and have a master plan for your career. Or maybe if it's not a master plan, it is a focused strategy. So you really want to work to come up with a statement that conveys these things, a combination of your skills, your values, and your experience. So what do you want others to know and see about you? Ultimately, this should be, and it really will be, 1 to 3 sentences about who you are and what you do that's unique in your specific area of expertise. So why do you need to have one of these personal brands? How can it benefit you in your job search? So for those of you that are currently in a job search or who have recently been looking for a job, really know that it isn't an easy process. It's been pretty frustrating lately for a lot of us. In fact, it can take several months. The last data from the Bureau of Labor and Statistics said about 19 weeks or 5 months to find a job. And you might find yourself applying for job after job without hearing back from any or very few employers. To be a more competitive applicant and candidate, it's important to highlight your strengths and what you can offer an organization that others cannot. A personal brand helps you do this, and it is a way for you to stand out. So that's why it's really important. Recruiters are using social media platforms like LinkedIn and others to find and vet candidates. A personal brand will also help people know what your talents are, and it gives you the ability to tell your story and to control your narrative. We know that 80% of hiring professionals are scouring the web just like everyone else. For them, the goal is often researching job applicants. So if you stay ahead of the game by making sure that when your name pops up in a search engine, they'll find information that's flattering, informative, and shows you in the best light. A personal brand will let potential employers know that you are goal-oriented and you have a strategy for your career, as I mentioned earlier. And a consistent personal brand is a marketing tool that serves as your own personal billboard of sorts that you can update with new and important events throughout your career. Use your personal brand to tell your career story, explain those values, and offer details about the skills and passions that may not come up in traditional job search formats. But where do you start this process? If you've never done this before, let's really kind of dive in and talk a little bit about it. So first things first, you want to know what is out there already about you. So that's the first step. What does your digital footprint say? That is what you want to do first. You want to examine LinkedIn and other social platforms and ask yourself these questions. Is there digital dirt out there about you? Have you ever vented about past workplaces and managers, or really anything else that might be controversial? Do you have an online presence already, or have you neglected anything and everything online? Are you presented as being socially responsible? Are there any controversial topics, or maybe even lots of partying pictures or otherwise in your content about yourself? Have you previously left a job on a bad note, or has someone else said something negative about you online? So if you are doing this process and you find anything that leans negative or might be questionable, you want to put a plan in place to repair your digital footprint before you go forward, or as you're moving forward as part of building your personal brand. This plan will help you to be seen in a more positive light if there's anything out there that exists already that's questionable. So if you need to make any repairs, as you begin the process of doing this, the branding goal should be for a recruiter who is researching you to find only positive content. This is the ultimate goal. How do you get there if there are some negative things floating around about you out there, or that you've already said? First, focus on networking. What do you have on your LinkedIn profile that may be holding you back or holding you down? Can you remove it, rework it? Start reaching out to some of your current contacts and join groups on LinkedIn that match your interests and career goals, and start interacting in a positive way in those groups. Do you have any certifications? You can also network with groups or people that hold that same certification. So that's another way to find groups online. And that will help you position yourself as an expert in your area of focus. Look through all other social channels as well. Can you erase any old history or comments that you've left online? Or could you even reach out personally to someone you reacted negatively to and apologize sincerely? That can be a step that you can take. If you can't erase those things, start being positive and forward thinking on anything that you do post. Find positive references through volunteering so that you have some new experiences and can also grow your network through these experiences. And really, this is not popular to say. It's not necessarily popular advice, but get to work. This is going to take time and a concerted effort, just like anything else you do in your job search. So really, depending on what works best for you, carve out time in your to-do list or your action plan for your job search to complete this important step. Then you want to go ahead and start creating the image or the brand you want to show the world. To create your personal brand, ask yourself a few questions. We're going to go through these and I'm going to go through them kind of slowly, but to get started, what motivates you to get out of bed in the morning? Why are you unique? And what passions do you have? So as you start to answer these questions, your personal brand starts to form. And there are a few other questions that I added to the slide that I think can also really help this as well. What do I struggle with? What drives me? What kind of tasks drain my energy? And what do people compliment me on? As part of answering these questions, you want to be able to determine what your personal brand represents and provide clarity. You don't want to confuse people who find you. Some people will post articles on customer success and then highlight the latest technology tools and then use words in their key skills or headline section like HR and talent acquisition. That's not streamlined. It isn't necessarily telling a cohesive story. So clarifying your values and knowing what your key skills are can help you focus on what's most important for your situation. This clarity in what you do and what you want to do will help you identify your unique value proposition. What is it about you that other people should focus on? And feel free to get creative. Allow those creative juices to flow. Look at other people in the field. What skills are they emphasizing? How are they positioning themselves? And then focus on how you are unique and different. A way to look at this might be, what do you bring employers that other people do not? Then take a look at your application documents like your resume. What are your results? What conclusions can you make about yourself with those results? So as you set out to determine what message you are looking to send, it's almost like setting an intention for you and your brand. What is it you are trying to convey? That's the question you keep asking yourself. What do people want to know about you? Do you want people to know you are a writer, for example, or that you have experience in writing digital content that grows brand awareness by 15%? Do you want people to know you are a customer service professional, or that you are able to build rapport with customers while actively listening to meet their needs and collaborate to reach customer goals? Know your niche and stand out. If you do a good job on this, you'll be able to sound authentic. You want to have integrity, charisma, and trustworthiness come through in your personal brand as well. So creating your brand, we talked a little bit about creating your unique value proposition. Who do you want to be? And that might be a question that you start with. Who do you want to be? This can help you define your niche and include your results like we talked about on the previous slide with those examples. And once you've sort of done this work and have your brand determined and you've got the building blocks in place, use the power of what's available in various digital channels to start sharing your message. So these are the areas on the slide, or the digital areas that you can use to really get your brand out there. LinkedIn. A couple things that you want to look at on LinkedIn are your profile. Is it complete? Have you added a featured section? Do you have a good banner and a headline and a photo? You can change your Facebook settings to be a bit more private, so you can strategically use life events to post on your timeline. You could set those to public if it can be helpful for your career or your branding, and if not, keep those settings to private. If you're on Twitter or Instagram, be consistent, reply, tweet, and interact with people. Update your bio to match your personal brand or your niche. Same with Instagram. You can utilize hashtags for almost any of these platforms. If you do use YouTube, again, consistency is key. You want to post aesthetically pleasing videos. Make sure you're paying attention and monitoring the comments, and give detailed descriptions of anything that you're posting there. There are some other ideas for sharing your brand on maybe a more broader scale. People in creative fields may have a personal website or blog that showcases the work and previous experience that you have. Customizing your resume and cover letter, we talk about this a lot, to match the keyword and skills of the job posting is important, of course, but so too is having a streamlined approach to sharing your personal brand messaging. So use keywords from your value proposition that you come up with, or another way that we can refer to a value proposition is sort of your elevator pitch. The key is to elaborate and to be painting a picture that is consistent with your brand. Finally, in-person networking opportunities that are available, and I think we're seeing more of those as the months pass. It can really give you additional opportunities to establish and share your personal brand. I used to be a business owner, and even though I didn't do a ton of in-person networking, I did do some. I didn't do a ton of in-person networking formalized events, but when I was out and about, I was doing in-person networking. I was taking an opportunity to talk to anybody that I came across about my services and my products. And that was a really great way to sort of get my elevator pitch and my personal brand out there in person. So it doesn't have to be a formal in-person networking event. Also, continue to reach out to your connections digitally. That is something that can really help your visibility as well. All right, so while we know what to do now in terms of creating a personal brand, we've started to give you the foundation of how you can go about doing this. We also want to point out the common mistakes that people make and things that we think are important for you to avoid as you are working on your branding messaging. First and foremost, it's got to be focused. We have mentioned the importance of focus throughout the presentation. If you do not have a focused brand or plan to get your brand, it is a mistake, and it will not give you the benefit of having a clear and concise message. At the same time, the opposite end of that, being too focused on self-praise can overwhelm readers and be a little bit off-putting. So you want to have a good, solid message that speaks highly of what you can provide, but you don't want it to be too self-praising. The other thing is consistency is so important. It is important that once you commit to building your brand, remember, this is a way for you to establish yourself as the best candidate for roles. We get asked a lot, how do I stand out from other applicants to jobs? There are so many applicants. A personal brand is a way for you to stand out. Now, this is something that takes a little while to curate, so it's not a one and done thing that you can do, but it is something that will help you ultimately stand out as a better candidate for roles if you have this good, solid messaging. So you want to be consistent and make it a point to post and share items that reinforce your brand and your message. Doing the work to establish your brand and then letting it, kind of float off into cyberspace or just sit there in a static way online will ensure that nobody sees the work that you put in and people are looking for that. Instead, put a plan in place to share recent industry news, use hashtags that are relevant to your job search and your industry and what you want to do, update and like relevant posts that you see that reinforce your brand messaging. So with anything, there is a balance, just like you don't want to be too self-praising. You don't want to say too much. So don't overpost every 20 minutes or every hour, daily is good. You don't want to say too much. You also want to make sure that you are concise and clear in the things that you say. So what do we do next? All right, so there are some key steps that you can take. Understand who you are and what people should know about you. Those are the questions that you want to ask first in order to kind of put the wheels in motion to develop your personal brand. Because once you know that, you can start writing your branding content. And when you have a clear message and a clear strategy, update your documents, your social profiles, and put together your plan with the activities you're going to do to sort of spread the messaging of your brand out there so you are visible to the people you want to see you. And finally, exude confidence in the activities that you are doing, because if you are not confident in the messaging that you are putting out, that is going to be obvious to the people that are receiving it. So taking the time to go through the first few steps will help you maintain that confidence as you go through the remainder of your job search. All right, so we're going to go to questions, but I want to make a few reminders first. We'll be sending a copy of this recording and any resources that we use during the presentation. If you have any other job search questions or topics that you would like information on, don't forget to go to the FlexJobs blog. Over 4,000 articles, all free, with resources and tips for any area of your job search. So please don't forget about that. All right, so without any other information to share in the presentation portion of it, I want to go ahead and get to our questions. So let's see what questions have been coming in. Hey, everybody, it's Tony. We do have some questions, so thank you for those. Let's dive right in. Is it necessary to have all kinds of social media platforms? I only have Instagram and LinkedIn, as I find other platforms not helpful in my mental health. Would Instagram and LinkedIn suffice? If not, how else can I showcase my brand digitally? So I think I totally agree with you here. I have had to make some accommodations for myself in terms of what apps I keep on my phone and what are on my computer to really help with the mental health portion of social media. I think that for job seekers, a LinkedIn profile, and if you have Instagram, that is plenty. LinkedIn is the professional networking platform. So, from a job seeker perspective, that's great. Now, for personal branding, I think it also depends on what role you are looking for, what industry you are in. If you are somebody in a creative field, or somebody who does content marketing or digital marketing, then it may be helpful for you to have some business or portfolio like social channels that you monitor and manage, with working it through, the personal weight of having those. But I think professionally for your brand, if you are in a field that is outside of a creative field, LinkedIn is fine. Can you rebrand through email? Sure. I think that when we were talking about, the different ways that you could rebrand or brand, like using Pinterest or YouTube or, some of those social channels, an email, particularly if you have a customer base and maybe you're switching to something else, or maybe you're evolving or adding new services, certainly communicating via email can be another outlet or method for you to get your messaging out there. My old job wants me to come back. They love me. Yay. Yeah, that is great. But they are not keen on giving a good review because they want me to come back. Okay. All right. Well, a couple of thoughts on this, and I'm not sure the question, but when I read this, I kind of want to think through this. I'm not sure how big the company is that you would be going back to when somebody does and I don't know if you mean on giving you a good review. Does that mean a recommendation if somebody were to call? And if it does mean recommendation, maybe you can not use them and use other personal recommendations or references that you have that might say something, or that you can confirm or know with certainty that they would say something favorable. You could also, if the company is big enough and give the name of your company and can they contact your former employer, sometimes people will have a friend or family member call and kind of do a reference check to see what's said. I would be surprised if a company would say something that is not accurate because they wanted you to come back, because they have to be honest. And so those are the kinds of things that you want to think about. And so those are my thoughts on that. That sounds like a tricky issue. Let's see. I don't have much social media activity or history, especially after I changed my last name when I got married. Does that help or hurt me? I think that one of the things to think about if you are a job seeker, um, most hiring people will look for you, will Google people's names, right? They are going to do a digital check. So if you don't have a Facebook profile, Twitter, all that stuff is not going to come up. But they also will look on LinkedIn, and they also do a lot of um, recruiting from LinkedIn. So a LinkedIn profile can be very helpful for visibility in terms of your job search and your career. I certainly think that LinkedIn is a helpful platform for your long-term career strategy because you can continually build your profile, build your career. It can be a running record of your accomplishments and your experiences. So I don't think that it hurts you. No, I do think having a LinkedIn profile is something to consider, particularly if you're in a job search and you haven't had much luck. That is something to layer in if you haven't already. All right. In addition to your brand statement, what kinds of things should go on a personal website for an IT leader professional? So, of course, those leadership skills and strengths. I think as somebody in an IT role, you want to have listed the, and I'm not an IT person, so uh, programming, coding, uh, experience with technologies that you have that are up to date or that you have evolved from to more current things. I think as an IT professional, just like as a digital marketing professional, everything is evolving really quickly. So it's important to show in your messaging that you are evolving and growing at the same rate as everything else. So maybe and have an understanding of AI and ChatGPT and BART and some of those other platforms. And knowing that shows a growth mindset, and it shows people that you are embracing change and moving right along with it, which I think is a good thing. All right, got that one. Let's see. I hear a lot about the use of insights to highlight specific work you may have done. Do you find these helpful? Exactly how might these be shared with a potential employer? I am going to be honest with you. I've not, I need to do some investigation onto that. So what I will say from a general perspective, because I don't have experience with insights, is that if you are in a field that is, you are a creator or a builder of something, and is documentation of some sorts for your projects or the work that you've done. Essentially, if you have a career that can benefit from a portfolio, that is definitely something that you want to consider because you would have an easy way to highlight and show and send something to employers when they are asking for it. What if you are an introvert? Well, that is okay, and that is a good thing too. Introverts tend to be very thoughtful. They are very process oriented in terms of really thinking through anything that comes to mind, and you want to use some of those strengths that you have as an introvert as part of your brand positioning. What if my very good references are really old, 3 to 4 years? COVID layoff that led to inconsistent work history and stealth startup work where I was CTO and developer, listed on resume as lead engineer. I don't think that references that are 3 to 4 years old are too old, actually. I think that the important thing about reference, certainly a 20-year-old reference, you've definitely evolved and changed in the last 20 years. If that's, I'm speaking from experience, I have a really good reference that would be a reference for me. But that was my first boss and mentor early in my career. So that's a little bit different. But I think anything within your last, 10 to 15 years, if you're going to put those jobs on your resume, I think they would be fine references for you to include. What are some good strategies for personal branding for folks over 60 to mitigate some perceptions or biases that you might be impacted by? So, for those, I think I would start on your LinkedIn profile and I would be very forward thinking and approach your profile as being designed to the next job you want. You don't necessarily want to focus on, and this would be true for your resume as well. You don't want to focus on your 30 years of experience, rather the skills that you have now that are most relevant and sought after for the type of work that you are looking for. And that is how you want to position yourself for the type of work that you're looking for, whether that's part-time or full-time, management level or below management, whatever that is. You really want to pick up on the key words, the skills required for the work that you are trying to do, not necessarily the work that you have done. And of course, having said that, it is a balance between the work that you've done and showing your accomplishments, but also leaning forward into what you are wanting to do next. So you're kind of balancing, your new career goals with the experience that you have by focusing on your skills. All right, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I want to be respectful of time. We got through a lot of questions. Hopefully this was helpful. I will be back if you are a member of FlexJobs for our member Q&A this afternoon. We do have another webinar tomorrow as well. So we will hopefully see you in Big Marker then. And with that said, everyone have a great morning.